Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. Today I'm going to make chicken stock. If you've seen my PDF recipe or on the website or the YouTube video that I've done on how to bone a chicken or debone a chicken or fillet a chicken, whatever, if you've seen those, you know that I buy my whole chickens for 99 cents a pound at the warehouse store. I trim off what I want, the meat, and then I put the skin, the bones, and everything in a bag and store it in the freezer. When I get enough of that in the freezer, then it's my day to make chicken stock. Now you can buy chicken stock or chicken broth in the store. I have. This is pretty good stuff. This is more of a broth. I call it a broth when it's made just from the meat and the skin, that kind of discard. This isn't going to have the velvety texture that a homemade stock is going to have, because a homemade stock is made also with the bones. And in the stock making process, the bones, the gristle, they give off a kind of a gel that, for example, if you put this in the refrigerator, it's not going to turn into a gel. It'll still be a liquid. But if you put homemade stock in the refrigerator, if you've ever done that, you know how it turns into a big bowl of jelly. It gels. That gelatin that's in it is from the bones and the gristle and so forth. That's what gives the stock more of a velvety texture in the mouth when you use it for soup. It's also practically free because, again, you're buying the chickens really inexpensive, 99 cents a pound, and you're making your stock from the discards, the skin, the bones, the things you would normally throw away. All you have to buy is your mirepoix, which is a carrot, celery, onion. Then those are the three items that make up your mirepoix. Put in some bay leaf or two, put in a half dozen or a dozen peppercorns, water, boil it for an hour or so. That makes your stock. Let it cool down, strain it, you've got chicken stock. So let me show you what I'm going to be using to make homemade chicken stock. First thing I want to show you is one of my bags of chicken stock. As you can see, there are all these individual pieces. There's 8 of them in there. That's my frozen chicken stock. Keep this in the freezer. How I get these individual blocks of stock is I buy these plastic containers and then I fill them with my stock, right? Put the lid on, stack these all up in the freezer, and then once they're frozen, pop the stock out, put the stock in plastic bags. These cups each hold 1 cup each. So when I need a cup of stock, I know what I've got because it's pre-measured. This makes it really convenient. So that's where the stock ends up. Here are all my chicken pieces. This is all trim from the freezer that I've saved over time. Again, this is practically free. This is what I would have thrown away after trimming my chicken. Why not use that to make stock? You don't have to be really fussy about how these vegetables are going to look because it's not like you're making a stir fry. I'm just going to have that. It's all going to get thrown away afterwards. All you want is the flavor out of these vegetables. Into the pot. If you can find celery with leafy tops, that'll give you even more flavor. I've got 3 carrots here. I might as well use all 3. That'll give me a little more flavor. And then I'll split this up between both pans. Onion. You don't even need to peel your onion. Just cut it in half. Break it up. throw that into your pot. I am going to cut that root section off just in case there's any dirt in there. I don't want the dirt in my stock. And as I mentioned, I have some parsley. I'm not going to use all of that, just some of it. Divide that up between my pots. And then I'm going to add some garlic. And I don't chop this or anything. I don't even peel it. Just mash it like so. And divide that up between both pots. Okay, other than my herbs, as I mentioned, I'm going to put a couple of bay leaves in each of these pots. And then I'm going to put in about 10 or so peppercorns. I don't know how well you can see these, but a couple of bay leaves in each pot, 10 or so peppercorns, no salt, because I don't want my stock to have salt in it. I'll salt the soup or whatever sauce that I'm making afterwards. And then I'm going to put 6 cups of water into each pot, and then bring these to a boil with my chicken pieces divided in there. And then let this pot's going to have to cook for about an hour. But once this pot comes up to pressure, my pressure cooker, I will let it, I'll turn the heat down just to maintain the full pressure of 15 pounds per square inch and let it cook that way for 30 minutes. Turn the heat off and let this naturally depressurize. And then I'll let both of these pots cool until the liquid is cool enough to handle. And then I'll show you the straining process. This next step is kind of messy, so I've got my apron on. I'm going to be lifting all of this stuff from the cooking pot and placing it in a colander that I've got placed over a bowl so that it can catch any stock that drips down through. All right, I think that's the last of it. Then the next step is to strain this. This is a chinois. It's conical filter. It's a fine mesh chinois. I use this whenever I'm straining stock. It makes it so much easier. Let the last of that drain. Conical filters are nice because if it gets, as it gets clogged at the bottom, it just drains higher up. All right, and that's pretty much drained there. I've poured my stock into a glass bowl so that you can see what I'm doing here. It's got a beautiful golden color. If you just notice this golden line around the top, that's where the chicken fat has risen to the surface. I'm going to place this in the refrigerator after it's thoroughly cooled down, and that fat will congeal into a hard layer. The stock underneath will gel, and with a spatula or a large spoon, I should be able to just scrape off, lift off most of that hard fat and discard it. So I just have to skim this fat off the top. Sometimes the fat is real soft, like it is today. Sometimes it ends up like a real hard coating on top. That's usually a lot easier to skim off. All right, pretty much done here. You're not going to get off, obviously, every molecule of fat. A little bit of chicken fat is not going to be a problem in soups or sauces. All right, so there's all the fat that I took off of the stock, and there's our relatively clean stock. The next thing to do is to melt this. For melting this, you don't need to get this very hot. You just need to just bring it up warm. And that'll be enough to melt it. That is a lot of stock. All right. So this will take a few minutes. I'm not trying to get this hot. I just want to get it melted. My stock is melted. I checked the temperature. It only came up to about 98, 99 degrees body temperature. And now it's just a matter of ladling the stock into these 1 cup containers. I use these like semi-disposable Ziploc cups. I think they work very well. For a while I couldn't find them in the store, and they finally started stocking them again. The 1 cup size I think is perfect because my stock is all pre-measured into 1 cup portions. Makes it a lot easier to work with when working with a recipe. I mentioned earlier in the beginning that I make a lot of soup in the wintertime. Sometimes I'll come home and every day I'll make a bowl of chicken noodle soup for myself. What are some other things you can do with stock? You can cook rice in it rather than using water. Stock is what's used for making the Italian rice risotto. When I make stuffing for turkey or chicken, I use stock to moisten the bread rather than water, because the stock is going to have so much more flavor, and it adds a nice flavor to the stuffing. All right, I'm going to continue ladling stock here into these bowls and then set this all in the freezer. And here is my fresh chicken stock. I started off in each pan with 6 cups of water. I ended up with 14 cups of stock. How that is possible is this is the moisture that also comes out of the skin, the chickens, and the vegetables. So that makes up the additional liquid here that you see for 14 cups of stock, and that's about right. That's what I usually anticipate. 6 to 6.5 to 7 cups of stock when I use 6 cups of water. So now all I do is just put these lids on and then stack these in the freezer and allow them to freeze overnight, and then tomorrow morning I'll pop these out, put them in a Ziploc bag. You saw that Ziploc bag at the beginning. That's how I store my stock. So homemade chicken stock it's a lot of work, but I think of this as being the real center of cooking. If you don't mind spending a lot of time working in the kitchen, you can get some great food for yourself. Stock, I think homemade stock is wonderful to work with. You can buy the broth that's sold in the store. But when I can, I always try to work with homemade chicken stock because for 2 things, the flavor's a lot better, it's a lot richer. This is a concentrated stock because I used only 6 cups of water to begin with. And this has that gelatin in it that the stock in the store, the broth in the store does not have, and it's that gelatin that gives the stock its velvety texture. So there is homemade chicken stock. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe, go to the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or on the Basics page.